Emotion and the brain. Well, we know when people have different emotions, it manifests in brain circuitry, and specifically different functional areas. In this case, really the focus over the past several decades has been on the emotion-related brain circuitry in the limbic system, which is really a distributed set of brain nodes or brain regions that function together to have the experience of emotions and maybe even to generate emotion experience and to detect what's personally salient and emotionally significant for us. So this is happening in a distributed brain system. What you see here in bright red is the amygdala, the left and right amygdala, which is, as probably everyone here knows, is a very important node within this limbic system for emotions. Here, just to flesh it out a little more, the limbic system really is made up of multiple brain areas, including the amygdala, hippocampus, hypothalamus, and other brain regions, and even other paralimbic regions like the orbital frontal cortex. So we're only beginning to really understand how these different brain circuitries contribute to different kinds of emotion and the ability to work with our emotions. But then there's a whole other part, this beautiful prefrontal cortex that is so fully developed in the human animals, which allows us to take perspective, to think, to analyze, to use language, all in the service of emotion regulation. In what ways can we actually think in a certain way that helps to change the meaning of something that's going on right now in our life, or even right this moment, to change its intensity, to change its duration, to even shift our interpretation of what that emotion is doing and why we're having it. That's this prefrontal cortical area that allows us to make abstractions, think, take perspective, apply different strategies. But this is not new. Almost 2 millennia ago, Marcus Aurelius said, if you are distressed by anything external or even internal, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Profound, profound statement, definition of emotion regulation. So it's not a new phenomenon in human animals. It's been here for thousands of years. But this is really something specific about our prefrontal cortex that allows us to work with these processes to modify our experience from moment to moment. So there are different stages of emotion regulation. And just, well, as I'm saying this, check your own experience. Preconscious, are there proclivities or even cognitive processes that are happening in the brain when a situation is occurring, even before we are aware of it, that's influencing how we interpret our emotions, how we interpret our current situation? Then this leads to immediate attentional shifts when it bursts into conscious processing. Something scary is going on, there's threat. Do I shift my attention to the source of threat, social approach? Do I shift my attention away, avoidance? Both of which can be forms of regulating my attention and which thereby influences emotions. Another aspect is emotion appraisal. How do I label that emotion? How do I interpret what that emotion is? And then cognitive reappraisal, using our thinking and perspective-taking ability to change the meaning. Oh, that's not a source of threat. It's only a stick or a rope. It's not a snake. Oh, that person was looking at somebody else, not at me. And then finally, and more subtly, metacognitive. How I process thinking. How I view my ability to create a space to understand how my mind works. So more metacognitive processes, all of these things that we're talking here can be trained through different practices. A little bit about the neuroanatomy. So wonderful work by Mary Phillips, Helen Mayberg, Wayne Drevitz, Kevin Oxner, on and on and on, some fantastic neuroscientists who really have, in the past 10, 15 years, begun to create models, brain anatomy and functional anatomy models of emotion reactivity and regulation. So in the context of a threat, real or imagined, this can rapidly shift our affective state, fear, anxiety, arousal. And this is really embedded in the emotional reactivity in the limbic system, amygdala, anterior cingulate. This sends a bottom-up signal to recruit help from other parts of the brain, other brain systems. When that's working correctly, then in blue, you see here that there are regulatory systems that then begin to process what is that threat, what are some strategies, how can I work with it? And when it's working well, it sends a top-down signal to modulate the intensity, the duration, the interpretation of that ongoing emotion experience. But I would also add that especially in human beings, this is mediated through our view of self, be it positive or negative or otherwise, and our ability to use language and thinking to modulate and understand our experiences. And that brings the last part of this talk, the most inspiring part, I hope, neuroplasticity. So until recently, we thought you can't change the brain. You can't change the anatomy. You can't change the functioning or the linking of circuitry. Well, in fact, we're finding more and more that you can. So until recently, they thought, OK, so maybe when you're infants, the brain is plastic. But as you become an adolescent and adult, you cannot. That also now has been debunked. And in fact, training the brain, training influences brain structure and brain function. Here we go. This is a very, very simple engineering diagram of the brain. Very simple. The brain is super, what is it? Google actually refers to 10 to the 100th, right? That's what a Google is. I looked it up. That would posit that the brain is that complex. We are only presenting reduced, reductionistic aspects of the brain. The brain is much more complex and beautiful than we can imagine. But we know from our own experience, and I hope this is true, that in our own mental states can be like a fly stuck on a sundew leaves, stuck, not able to fly. And at other times, via our own experience, we can experience our own mind as a fluid mountain stream. And I would posit that it's about our choice. We can train the mind in either of these directions. We can also bring a sense of acceptance to both of these mental states, in ourselves and others. This is one of my favorite studies, London cab drivers, showing that the number of years of experience driving in London, which apparently is an incredibly complex grid, not like New York City, that they actually had greater activity in the hippocampus. On structural changes in the structure of the hippocampus based on the number of years of experience driving a cab in London. Direct experience literally changing the shape of the anatomy of the brain. Again, neuroplasticity. This is a very interesting study that was done cross-sectionally, not pre-post, but looking at insight meditation practitioners, that on an anatomical level, these two areas, which normally decline as you age, this is gray matter, normally decline as you age, which actually was preserved in those people who meditated. And in fact, the number of years of meditation was shown to protect, was a protective mechanism against the normal decay or loss or degeneration of gray matter. Cross-sectional study, not pre-post, so it's a different kind of design, but I'm sure that somebody will be working on a stronger experimental design soon. So again, more evidence that what we choose to do with our time influences even across the aging process. And this is just another study showing that with mindfulness meditation in people with anxiety disorders, what's in the circles is a network of brain regions in which attention regulation is instantiated, and that those regions are increased, i.e. better ability to use the brain to shift your attention pre-post mindfulness training. So in summary, threat, real or imagined, definitely what we can see is that you can modulate up or down, but hopefully down, the intensity of emotional reactivity, and that you can use all of these other brain systems, cognitive regulation, thinking, attention regulation, volitionally shifting our awareness, our attention, mediated through self-view and language to lead to greater well-being.